I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. A lot of news breaking this morning if you haven't seen it. Kevin Bacon, and I believe we are only separated from him by like 6 steps, was in Rhode Island yesterday having lunch in Al Forno. No, a Tony Place down in Newport. He was having lunch with his wife, actress Janie Seguí, in Exeter, Rhode Island. Take a look at that story on GoLocal. But enough of that. Let's go to probably the most important issue facing the Rhode Island legislature this year is education, and specifically the proposed moratorium on charter schools. Janie Seguí Rodríguez joins us. She is the founder and the president of the group Stop the Wait. This organization is parents really pushing for quality education for all children in Rhode Island. Janie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Janie, you were on, I'm going to say 3 or 4 months ago, and it was before really it had started to heat up at the State House. The first hearing on the effort to block the expansion of public charter schools, you had organized 200-300 parents for that hearing online, ready to testify. Talk about building this incredibly impressive grassroots organization to be able to advocate for quality education.
Well, you know, grassroots campaigns really, one, you have to have passionate people, and there's no one who's more passionate about their children than parents. So lots of moms and some dads also took part in this process in really activating and mobilizing other parents. And that's kind of the beautiful part about it, was getting to know everyone and just kind of spreading the word and connecting and knowing that as a collective force that we really were a force.
You absolutely were a force. I mean, it's not every day that functionally the vast majority were mothers. 300 moms tee it up to be heard on the critical importance of public charter schools. Talk about it. It's not just, you're from Pawtucket. This was moms from Providence and Woonsocket and all over. Talk about what this group looks like and how it's continued to develop.
This is really parents from across the state, right? There's parents who directly are stakeholders, or parents who were previous students within the school system and either are charter parents now because they wanted an alternative school system for their children, or parents who simply want more options. And there's lots of parents, we come in from all different parts of the state, but we all have the same goal, and that's really for our children to have opportunities available to them, for them to be successful, and for them to receive the education that they deserve. And so a lot of the parents, some of them are charter school parents, some of them are public school parents who are waitlist parents. As of right now, there's about a little over 18,000 parents who applied to charter schools this last school year. And that just shows the need and the want in the community for more.
Well, last time you were on, you got a call the next day or so from somebody at the State House who had seen the interview. Talk about that phone call and what happened after that.
Which phone call?
The governor.
Yes. So, we were asked to meet with the governor, and, that it happened really quickly. And we put together a quick group. I think maybe 7, 8 parents met with the governor, and they really just all, were able to tell their stories. It's really difficult in hearings for them to really understand or really listen to parents when you're limited by like a minute or two. And it's rushed. You're not in person. It's just really not the same. You're waiting for a phone call. You don't know when it's going to come. And so it was really nice to be able to just communicate with the governor and to allow all parents to really just sit there and speak with him and let them know about their personal experiences and what this really means to them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I listened to the whole hearing. It came across to me, certainly, how frustrated and passionate parents are across the area, and parents that don't have that option to say, I think my child is not getting the education he or she deserves. So I'm pulling them out and putting them in LaSalle, Moses Brown, Prout, Mount St. Charles, any of the prep school or Catholic school alternatives that cost $15,000 to $40,000 a year. Everybody doesn't have that option.
They sure don't. And that's huge right there. And this is why it's so important, again, right, to have options, because unless you've gone through it, you don't know how desperate that is for a parent to feel that their child is not getting what they need, that they're advocating, and it doesn't matter what they say, that nothing is changing year after year, and that they're seeing their kids' potential kind of waste away. One thing that I worried about as a parent when my fifth grader couldn't even write a proper sentence, I worried that she couldn't even work in a call center as an adult. I no longer have that worry, but the desperation is very real for parents.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone on and on. Listen, let's shift over. The governor then, after meeting with you, announced that he would veto that legislation if it moved forward in the General Assembly. That seemed to put a clear direction to legislators not to move that bill forward. It has not come out of the legislature. Let's shift over to Providence. Providence has been in chaos for decades. There was a 1993 report about the condition of Providence schools conducted by the former president of the University of Rhode Island, Ted Eddy. Fast forward 2019, Johns Hopkins University issues a report deeming it the worst or amongst the worst school systems in the United States. It has been stalled. The state takeovers was impacted by the pandemic, but also some terrible hires that undermined, I think, the credibility of what folks are trying to do, and the lack of urgency. What do you hear from parents? You talk to probably more directly than anyone in the state of Rhode Island. What do you hear about how people feel about the conditions of Providence schools right now?
Honestly, I think sadly, people are looking to flee, to leave if they can, to move to neighboring cities. Of course, people want to, try to build and make sure that there's opportunities, but it's a lot to ask of anyone, right? You're essentially asking people to sacrifice their children. And a lot of times, most of these parents went to the very same schools that they're trying to escape for their children.
Yeah, we
So
hear that over and over again. Yeah, I went
yeah.
there. I had to rebuild the term I keep hearing is, I had to rebuild my education. I came out, I didn't have any skills. I had to sort of start school all over again.
Yep, our kids get stuck taking remedial courses at CCRI. This happens year after year, and we're in a pandemic.
Yeah. Janie, talk about how should parents mobilize now? I think the political conventional wisdom is the moratorium is on ice right now. It's not going to affect the expansion of the 5,000 to 6,000 new seats that are now in momentum. But how do parents get their voices heard about the condition of Providence schools, Pawtucket schools, similar testing results, Central Falls schools, worse testing results than Providence, Woonsocket, I mean, you can go up and down, West Warwick, some schools in Cranston, schools in Newport. These schools, you're talking about 20% of the students being able to meet expectations in English language arts and mathematics, 20% or less able to meet standards.
Yeah, it's important for parents to continue to mobilize. There's definitely different groups where parents can tap into. There's Stop the Wait, of course, and we will continue to mobilize families. We're up to about 600 families now, and we're definitely looking to start. We're already starting to work on, initiatives that we care about and want to see for the next legislative session. And there's definitely still efforts going on also through PLE, Parents Leading for Educational Equity. So there's different groups that parents can tap into depending on what it is that they'd like to work on. But definitely mobilizing. It's hard to change anything as an individual, but collectively as a body, that's where we really have power.
Listen, intertwined with all this has been issues of class and race. And you can't escape it. We need to talk about it. PLE had posted at one point a page of the Providence Teachers Union website that showed their entire leadership. And it had about the 16 top people in that union, and there was not one person of color in that 16 who lead that organization. Juxtapose that, the overwhelming majority of Providence students are of color. They're Black and Latino and Southeast Asian. They're a mix of the world's countries, right? And how is that an obstacle to moving sort of reform and change forward when we seem to have this cultural disconnection?
I think it's important that, when we're talking about large systems of power, right, where, we know that the teaching force across the country, right, not just Providence, not just Pawtucket, is overwhelmingly white. But there are teachers of color within these systems, right? And there's no reason that there shouldn't be teachers of color within the leadership of these different organizations. And diversifying is super important, right? It matters in the way that we implement policies, the way that we move going forward. And diversity in itself is an asset. And it's a great way to connect with the community and to ensure that you are representing the community at all levels. And it's also about sharing power. And so I would hope that, that we'll start to see some changes within the leadership of those different teams as well.
You've been one of the most successful people I've seen from 0 to 100, building a grassroots organization that is powerful and is being heard. Are you more optimistic about the future or more cynical about what you've experienced?
I think I'm an optimist in general. So for me, I'm definitely always going to go with optimism. But it's the beautifulness of organizing, right? It's about getting people together, and it's about building something together that we all want. And we're more invested again than anyone else in our children's future. And we're not going to stop. We're going to keep pushing for the policies that we see fit that are going to ensure that our children have a successful future.
Janie, last word goes to you. If parents are watching, they're frustrated with the education that their child is getting in public schools around Rhode Island, what should they do? What's your advice to them?
Tap into our group. Check out stopthewaitri.org. We have a form right online where you can connect. We send weekly blasts. We've had a few in-person meetings, and we're definitely going to be increasing those. Again, we're going to have specific working groups that will be working towards specific legislation. So please come out and join us. We'd love to hear from more parents across the state.
Janie Seguí Rodríguez, the woman behind Stop the Wait RI, she has put together a political force in Rhode Island, started from 0, and in about less than 6 months has turbocharged this to being a major influencer up at the Rhode Island State House. It's a lesson for everyone who's frustrated about different aspects of life in Rhode Island, of what you can do when you're passionate about it. For everybody else, stay tuned. Dr. Phil Chan will join us at 1 o'clock, and we'll be talking about a host of healthcare issues, including the proposed tax on sugary drinks that is designed to put some money behind getting better nutrition to poorer families. Stay tuned. Much going on here in Rhode Island on this beautiful day. Stay safe. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, go get a jab. It's easy. Anybody can do it. Even I was able to do it twice. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.